think I'm gonna do it. Then been doing the sides at like a half guard for a while, but it's getting thin up top and just ready to move on. Now think about it. Let's do it. Man, man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I see almost every guy turn it back off. I get it. I get it. Ah, man. I mean, I want to do it, but it's just, you turn it on and you bring it close to your head. You're like, mm. Ah, man. Ah, it's so hard. So hard.
It's definitely something that runs on both sides of the family. Early on in high school, I started to kind of realize that my hair was pretty thin, and then it it really started to act like, and my hair was never. I never was blessed with the nice luscious locks. I always had kind of thin hair, but then it really started to thin out. I think as I got toward my junior and senior years of high school, so like 17, 18, so pretty young. Now I'm 20, turning 21. It's one of the things you notice it, and then you can't unsee it. Once I notice it, I can't forget it, and then I'm just thinking about it constantly, and that's kind of where I've gotten to the point today, where it's something that I'm thinking about a lot, and I feel like that time could be better spent elsewhere. We were in swim class in gym, and this one kid is like, "Dude, your hair is really thin." Just to have that out loud. Now I still remember that moment because I think that was the first time it really kind of got called out. I had gone on vacation with my friend, and we were on the beach all day, but I realized my scalp burned. That was like the second big pivotal moment I can remember thinking, man, this isn't going to last for too much longer.
You mentioned like up to the point now where it's on your mind like more often than not, right? But how long has that journey been then?
I had like a sinking feeling, and this was like real young, that it was going to happen. Just looking at the family genetics and things, I'm like, and again, like I said, my hair was never super thick. So then I started to like worry about it a lot, which in retrospect, I really shouldn't have done. I really just should have enjoyed it while I had it. But then it was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy because it came true. It's been an ongoing issue probably for like the last like 7 to 10 years, I'd say. Every time you look at the mirror, that you're kind of like, yeah, I don't really know if I like the way that looks. You just spend more and more time on it. I think the more it progresses. And I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of that feeling. I don't think it rules my routine, but it's just become part of it. Like even this now, like being a student with classes, my life basically revolves around Zoom. Every time before I enter a class with the camera on, it's always like, oh, can people see it? Do people notice it? And it's like before I would enter the class, I would slip into the bathroom real quick and see, did the wind mess it up? Is it noticeable? And again, I don't think it was necessarily something that ruled it, but it was definitely like a part of my routine. If you add up all that time, that's a lot of time just wasted worrying about something that I just don't want to really worry about anymore. I was thinking about like when you see a picture of yourself, you look at yourself and like, oh, how do I look there? But I think it just like the first thing when you're losing your hair, you're like, how's my hair look in that picture? How's my hair? Oh, that doesn't look too good. Like that's the first thing. And it's kind of that unspoken. You don't really think about it until you actually say it, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm spending so much time worrying about this. Why? That was something that was on my mind really from day one of realizing that my hair is kind of thin, is looking up like what the solutions are and what you can do. And, it's something that I've spent a lot of time on. Again, kind of going back to, I don't even think about it. Sometimes I'm just kind of looking at all the different options out there. And my grandfather actually last year just got a hair transplant. Obviously, that's something that's talked about a lot. And there's a lot of, for every person that's for it, another person's against it. I mean, everyone's got an opinion on it, obviously. And so that was interesting to me too, because not to pivot a little bit, but here's a guy who's in his 70s, and it's still something that bothers him. And he didn't get it as early as I did. I think he said he was in his 40s or something. So it's not been as long as it didn't start when he was my age, but it's still, I think people have this assumption too, like, oh, if only I lost my hair when I was 45 or 50. It's like, it doesn't ever really get, guy says, well, I'm old enough, it's okay. Like it bugs everyone. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time looking up solutions. I've seen the hair systems. Like, they don't call them wigs anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
some of those look really good. and they look, but and I think you can rock that. And I think there are guys that rock it really well, and I know, knowing myself personally, I know I would do a fine job maintaining it and everything. But it's like that's it's kind of like just literally it's masking the problem. And I think if it helps your self esteem, then that's great. I don't have anything against it. I've considered it, but it's like do you really want to all that time and money spent on something that's really not a true solution?
You'd done the research, and you'd looked into all of those things. The sort of decision that you made then, sorry, the conclusion that you kind of had on those things was what again? Sorry.
I think for me, it was just like, what is the solution? And they're not, for at least right now. It doesn't seem to me that there's a true solution to hair loss. They can all kind of get at it, and really, I think they try to eat away at helping your self-esteem and building your self-esteem as opposed to fixing the actual issue. But it can't actually fix the issue, and I think that's something that is that's what made the decision for me a lot easier, is that there's no true fix to the issue yet. And you're going to spend a lot of money with any of these solutions, and for, like, again, going back to the idea, for some people that it works, but for me it was like, it's not actually fixing the issue. I think it's, to me personally, and again, everyone's got a different way, but to me personally, it would just be kind of trying to push out the issue or kind of deny it, when, like, I know inside I'm not denying it. So I think that's kind of my stance on it. Got prescribed Rogaine when I was like 16 or 17, which is like, and they gave me the okay to do it, which is really young. And for whatever reason, I think I just determined not to, because I had read, okay, you can do it. And for a lot of people, it works, but you got to stay on it. If you don't stay on it, it sheds. And so, like, and then you add up how much money that's costing. It's like, even if you have a lot of money, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, and just from a financial perspective, I was like, why don't I put that money elsewhere into something that I enjoy more, and that I don't, like, for me, that was kind of like a secondary thing, but I don't think you can ignore that aspect of it.
The thing that surrounds all of this conversation is the fact of everything's getting more complicated. There's now, when you start bringing these things into the mix, there's so many different factors to kind of, worry about. And often, you do one thing, you got to do something else to kind of combat that. Even just simple things like people say, right, so when you use the Rogaine, you can't go swimming like for the first 4 hours, otherwise it's not effective. Or, oh, it made my hair greasy, so I had to like wake up X amount of hours before I had to be somewhere. And do you know what I mean? Even small things like that it's getting more complicated.
It was like I was telling you, I kind of had built like the time to make sure my hair looks good into the routine. And I feel like that's the same thing that is. And for me, that's not really a solution, because one of the things I think is liberating is not having to worry about it. And it's, if you go on the Rogaine or the hair fibers or all the other things out there, that worry's still there. It's just kind of changed a little bit, but it's still there. And for me, that's not, I don't want to do that. It's always been building up, and I've even last night, just watching some of your videos, that hearing the guys say there wasn't one big bang moment where I was like, oh, today's the day. I think it's just kind of been adding up, and just realizing that your life isn't over. Your life doesn't just change. The sun still rises tomorrow, and yeah, your look changes. And for a couple days, I think yes, it'll be weird, and you'll hear the jokes, but after that, everything goes back to normal. And I think that's kind of what I've started to realize. And I was like, well, what am I doing? Why am I not buzzing my hair? And then I kind of realized, like, there really is no reason. Like, I'm just kind of, like we've been saying, I'm just kind of denying, or not denying, I'm just kind of putting off something I know is going to happen eventually. And it just gets to a point where it's like, I don't need that anymore. I don't need to deal with that stress anymore. It's kind of like a youthful thing, right? Like, having hair is very youthful, and it is. I'm 20 years old, turning 21. I'm still got a lot of life ahead of me, I hope. And just the hair just holds me back. And I just think, yes, I think I'll probably look a little older, and I have that image in my head of, oh, I'm a young guy, and that shouldn't change just because I decide to change my haircut. Essentially, this is something that I want to do, and I think it will improve the quality of my life. So I'm really excited for it.
All right, let's try this again. Oh, Oh wow. Wow.
How's it going,
Hey,
man? How are
good. How
you?
are you?
I'm doing really
Good.
well. Doing really, really well. Thank you. Yeah.
It's been a blur of a week, but I can't help but smile, man. It's been a good. It's been a good week.
This has been like a quite a gradual thing, which is awesome, and it's kind of a similar step that I took, and so again, that's why I was excited to have this conversation, and hope we just like just hear it from your own sort of perspective, like how that kind of went.
Right after we talked, like I was very keen to do it, and like the next day or the day after I did, I took the first big step for me, and like you said, it was a gradual process, but I I had the trimmers. I got the I think you recommended the Circers, so I got
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
They're really nice. I haven't actually charged them once since I've
I know
had the battery's been great.
it's mad. I've got mine here as well, and I've not charged them, and it still says 81%. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah,
I know it's crazy.
yeah, yeah. So I really like them, by the way.
Good,
That's kind
good.
of an aside, but yeah, great purchase on my part. But so the first big step was just taking down the sides because, like a lot of guys, my hair was pretty long on the sides and in the back because it still grows really well there. And so I took it down. I started with a 4, which, like, again, my hair was pretty long. So, and I didn't even realize how much hair I had back there, honestly. And I took it down. That was a big step. That step was where I there was kind of like, you see like the guys that talk about, I was really kind of, down at first. And like for the first 10 minutes, I was really down when I first did that. And I was really kind of like, oh man, what did I just do? But then I remembered like kind of like why. And I asked, like why I had done it in the first place. After that, it was just gradual. And so I eventually, over the course of a month or two, I worked my way down to like a half guard on the sides and kept the top, pretty long, and kind of like that look, but it didn't really. First of all, I'm not. Obviously, I have no background in cutting hair, so I didn't really blend it that well, and it also didn't, it's really kind of receding and like thinning, and so it looked better than it probably did before, but it still didn't look great, and it took me a little while to work up the courage, just because, you know, I faced a little bit of not pushback at home, but people, my family was like, well, it's what you got's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And I think, that was coming from a genuine place, like trying to help. And it did help me in some senses, like I'd ask my friends too, and they kind of say the same thing. They'd be like, yeah, you could, but it looks fine as is. And I think what really got me to do it was just realizing, like, not thinking about what other people are, going to think about it, because, we'll get into this, but, my friends and the people I lived with, they didn't, they didn't even notice when I eventually went and did the whole thing. Like, they didn't even say anything. First I'm like, well, they're just not looking at my head, and then they clearly were, and they just, like, finally, like, after like spending a couple hours with my buddy, he's like, oh, did you get a haircut? He didn't even realize it. So it really comes down to, you, and that's what I realized. It's really about, it's not what other people think about, because most people really won't notice that much. It's really like what I think. And yeah, I eventually just said, like, look, this bugs me every single day. I think about it every single day. When I look in the mirror, I'm like, that's the first thing I'm looking at. And, that was really, I think, what got me to just finally do it.
Yeah, no, dude, it's really interesting that bit you mentioned about other people, because often I find that people's experience when they do kind of finally shape the head, or they go for it in different stages or whatever, the reactions, which is often one of the biggest things that kind of holds us back, right? It just never lives up to those expectations, and they either people react well or hardly at all, and then you think, wait a minute, I've done this huge thing here, and people don't really seem to be bothered, or they don't care, or what is that, and it's almost like like underwhelming for quite a lot of people, those reactions, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was expecting, like, I guess I was expecting everyone to look at me like I was, like an alien or something. And then
Yeah.
that was, no one looked twice. It was the complete opposite. And that was really reassuring. I did it, I think about a week and a half ago. Now, like, took it down and, like, so I'm still, still kind of getting used to it, but like, it was a very quick transition because once I realized that people really don't care and people aren't like, staring at you, that was such a, I don't know why I thought people would do that, I guess, in hindsight. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really realized how much it really is an internal thing. And I think, too, like, I know the big debate online and even on the comments in some of your videos is when you'll have some guys on who still probably have a good amount of hair. People are like, oh, why would you ever do that? Like, you still could hang on for several years. And um, some people, yeah, they probably could, but it really is an internal thing. That's what I really. It's so internal. It's what you think about it. If you're not happy with it, then it's just you're never going to be happy with it unless you come to some you're able to make peace with it. But I think that's hard for a lot of guys. It's hard for me, and I think I just felt so much better immediately after buzzing it.
Fantastic. No, I'm really glad to hear it. And like I said, yeah, when you sent me that message, I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. So let's touch briefly on taking that kind of gradual approach then, and how you think that maybe helped you. It sounds like maybe that helped ease the people around you kind of into it as well, to like get an idea that eventually this is the route you were going to take. And also maybe for yourself, right? Just taking it down gradually. It wasn't such a drastic change. Is that kind of how the experience went for you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think for me, it definitely it was for me, but it was also for the people around me. Like I said, I had a lot of hair on the sides and the back that was really thick, and so like it kind of, I don't know if it wasn't necessarily like a comb over or something like that, but it definitely disguised it a little bit. And from some angles, I still had a lot of hair, and so just buzzing it down and taking away a lot of the bulk, I think really kind of helped, and it helped me get. I'm like, oh, that doesn't look so bad. I look fine that way, and that helped. And then I think other people too, like my mom, she was one person who said, you don't need to do this. You look fine. And then when I did do it, she's like, oh, that doesn't look bad. That's fine. So, I think that gradual approach for me really, I think, helped ease myself into it and not to kind of overcome some of the worries of doing it. I think, like some guys you have that you just go from having, like really thick, long hair on the sides and maybe it's a thing on top, but they just go from not doing anything, just getting normal haircuts, to completely taking it all off. And I have a lot of respect for those guys,
Yeah,
but
me
I
too,
think
man.
my approach was right for me. I don't think I could have done that. I think I would have been an emotional wreck doing it all at once. I think this was good not only for the look but also like emotionally, just to kind of get into that state, I think, and be comfortable with it.
Yeah, good. No, definitely. I find that a lot now. Guys kind of afterwards, they kind of when they reflect and they say, some guys feel like it's not necessarily like I wish I'd done it sooner. Some people say that, but it's more like yeah, I could have done it sooner, but for me, like the way everything feels now, it's like this was the right time, and people kind of come to that realization in different ways, but it really seems like people do it at the right time for them, and it does show that there's no like one fixed approach. And like you, dude, I got so much respect for the guys that are like, no, this is it, and just go for it. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. I just want to ask you really quickly, just partly because I'm kind of interested in something I've been thinking about. And that's on, when you say not necessarily pushback from the family, but just said no, it's fine, like you look fine now, and I'm sure that is genuinely how they thought, right? They're like, dude, your hair's fine, like don't worry about it. Did you, because you mentioned as well you got other family members who are losing hair, different stages, or had lost hair. We had quite like an honest conversation about how the whole hair loss thing was making you feel. You said it's something you thought about like all the time. It almost became that kind of worry, and being focused on it on Zoom calls and things almost kind of just became part of daily life, right? Did you speak to those guys about, did you say like, oh, I kind of want to shave it off because of this is how I feel about it? Or was it more just like, oh, I'm thinking of just my hair's getting a bit thin now, I want to just get it, shave it off? How deep into the kind of explaining the emotional side of it for you did you go with those family members?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best example is probably my mom. Because at first she was, I think, pretty opposed to it, and she didn't really. I didn't think she liked the idea at first. But then when and so that was a little off-putting. Like I was a little, surprised, I guess, by that. And again, it wasn't in like a mean way. It was just like, hey, you look fine now. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. But when I explained to her kind of the emotions behind, she's like, and just saying like, it really bothers me. And she's like, well, if it bothers the tone changed a little bit, where it's like, well, okay, if that's what you think you have to do to be comfortable, then it was very clear. Like she kind of thought about it differently. And I think I really think the emotional part of it is a, like we've talked about, is a huge part. And I think being vulnerable, which is something I've worked on. I'm I guess kind of a classic guy, like just keep all the emotions inside. And I've tried to be a little bit more vulnerable and kind of talk about what I'm feeling. And all those, we all kind of have like, oh, touchy feely, we don't want to do that. But
Yeah.
when it is very gratifying to do that. And you find that most of us are in the same boat. I mean, you find that pretty clear. And obviously, my mom's a woman, so maybe not going through hair loss, but like everyone has those things about themselves they want to improve or want to change. And just kind of explaining that side of it, I think really it changed my mom's perspective a little bit. And then I think she opened up to the idea more. It just kind of by me opening up a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's good, because that's something I've been speaking about recently, and I've often thought about, and that's kind of the advice I give to people. I say, because I have guys who, mention to their wives or their friends, usually just to like test the water, to be like, oh, maybe maybe they just out of the blue, they say, oh, maybe I should shave my head too. What they're really meaning or thinking is, yeah, my hair's fallen out. It really makes me feel terrible. And I kind of just want to get rid of it and shave it off. But that whole emotional side of it is difficult for us to really open up and explain in that way. So you kind of just go you do the minimum that you feel comfortable with. And that's often just kind of like blurring it out, or being like, oh yeah, maybe I should get a shaved head, or I wonder how I'd look with a head shave. And I think because people genuinely, like you said, like they're not like analyzing our hair situation as much as we are. So they think, dude, your hair's fine. Like they've never really thought about it like the same way we have. So they're like, dude, your hair's absolutely fine. Like, why? You don't need to shave it off. And then obviously we kind of we take that to mean like, oh, maybe that means it will look bad, or they're saying I shouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? But as in your experience, when we actually say what we really mean, which is very difficult to do, but if you can build the courage, or like you said, with a parent or someone that you feel comfortable with, just be like, yeah, the real reason I want to shave it off is because, I'm always worrying about it, and it's distracting me, and it gets me down. It just doesn't, like you said, then they kind of start to really understand why and the reasons behind it, and what that might then do for you taking that route. And like you said, the tone changes, and you'll often, absolutely more often than not, just get a different kind of response, because you're asking a different question, or you're asking for a different sort of that's what you really mean. So I'm glad you kind of, yeah, that was your experience too, as it was for myself, and I'm sure loads of other guys out there.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit on so many things right then, and I just to go, like, you kind of explained so much, and what I went through, and I think what every guy goes through. Like, I can remember texting my best friend about it, and just how much nerve it took just to text him. And that sounds so stupid, but it does, just kind of, I think most of us aren't used to kind of, talking about things that we don't like that, and being open like that. And I know for me, I'm certainly in that, and that's certainly me, and I've tried to work on that. But just, it was so relieving when I finally did have those conversations, or kind of casually kind of threw it into other conversations, like, well, maybe what if I buzz my hair, and like just to see the reactions. And I'll tell you the truth, sometimes the reactions weren't positive. Like sometimes, I know like we've been talking about, certain members of my family were like, well, yeah, I guess you could, but you don't need to. You're fine for now. Don't worry about it. And so like, but I think that makes you stronger. Getting out. It also tells you that people around you are honest. They're not going to just tell you what you want to hear. I think that's important too. But yeah, I can just so much relate to just how much nerve it took just to even talk to my best friend about it, and he was really supportive of it, and that really helped. I mean, just having someone like that to say, yeah, just do it, and I think he's a person. I'm a very probably overanalyze everything, and he's kind of the opposite. And I think that was that was so helpful to have in the moment of doing it like that.
Good to have that balance, right? Someone to kind of think about it maybe a bit more strategically, or things like that to help you through it. Yeah. So, it came to the point after, gradually kind of taking it down a little bit shorter over these few months, kind of opening up a bit more, talking with more people about it. And eventually, you kind of went with, I think maybe like a one guard or something like that, just kind of all over, buzzed it off. So can you remember like what got you to that point then from going over these months? What was the thing that eventually made you think like, okay, now I think I'm ready to just go with this now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking myself the same question, and I knew it was not gonna be just like an epiphany, like because I had the epiphany like 15 times and didn't do it. It's like
yeah.
I knew it was just gonna be kind of like a spur of the moment thing, and I think it was just I read this thing on Reddit of just some guy like, I literally sat in the bathroom for 4 hours and thought about it, and then finally did it, and I thought like that's probably what it's gonna be like similar for me, and I started taking pictures of it, of my head, and just analyzing it and just think, look, you're not happy with it. Just, it's not a big deal. And, I think I sent you the videos. I don't, the videos are terrible. I should have done a better job on them. I didn't.
It's all good, man.
I should have but what I realized, like I did the thing everyone does. You go like, and then, finally I think you just let your hand keep going and just go right down, and then you can't stop, and so it was really just kind of almost like inertia. I think just pushing myself, and I think like your videos really helped, and then the Reddit page too is extremely helpful, and just seeing guys go through it and just scrolling through, and guy after guy. I haven't seen a guy that looks worse, honestly. So even if they like maybe like some guy will say, oh, I look worse physically, but most of the guys are smiling. You can just tell like the weight's lifted off their shoulders from that, and that's. It doesn't matter how you look then. It matters how you feel. And you can tell every guy feels better when they do it, at least on the Reddit page. The one thing I was thinking last night is that I noticed how much time I'm not spending thinking about it anymore. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Like when I walk in the bathroom, I'm not like worried about the top of my head anymore. Like, it's like, it's a very weird feeling. Not I really like the look. I think it's pretty nice. I really like it, but
absolutely. Yeah.
Just what all this extra time I have, and like I said, this week's been really hectic for me, so I found ways to fill it up, but it's just it really is such a weight off my shoulders, and I haven't like thought about it like just I would literally spend like I don't even how they have that you can see how much time you're spending on your phone. I think it'd be really interesting to see how much time I was spending thinking about my hair during the course of a day or a week, and just to have that kind of like wiped away in couple seconds has been just amazing for me, even in a week. For me, I've really been able to work on my personal development, and the hair just fits in right with that. Just getting into advice, I don't know if I have any advice, but I just say, like, do it at your own pace, but just see what these guys did, and see that like nothing other than the length of the hair on your head, nothing else changes in your life. And I would say just remember that nothing. Sun's still going to come up tomorrow. The same. Nothing else has changed. Just the length of the hair on your head.
Thank you so much, man. Like, thank you for getting in touch first of all, and sharing this whole thing, man. It's been great.